Do I Care on YouTube. So what we're going to be discussing today is the predictions for the 2024 presidential election. So this is the election map. You need 270 votes to become president of the United States. For this prediction episode, we are going to be assuming that Joe Biden is the nominee for the Democratic Party, which he is in very good shape to be. And we are also going to be assuming that Donald Trump will be the nominee for the Republican Party, because as of this time, he is the front runner. This week's episode on the podcast is all about that, so be sure to go check it out at whydoicarepod.com so you can find it on any streaming service that you kind of use. So, jumping right into it, these are the states that are most likely going to decide who the next president of the United States is going to be. These are the swing states from the last couple of elections. However, there are two we're going to knock off very quick. Florida. Why Florida? Florida has gotten increasingly more and more Republican. We see this in Ron DeSantis just absolutely wiping the floor in the midterms, right? The Democrats did very, very well in the midterms, except for Florida. Florida was a very, very weak spot for them. The party in general in Florida is kind of having an identity crisis because they don't know how to fight Ron DeSantis and combats kind of the anti-gay legislation that he has, the anti-abortion, all of these. They are struggling to come up with a message against him. So in general, they are definitely very weakened. And Donald Trump does reside in Florida, and he is very popular in Florida. So it's pretty safe to assume that this will go to the Republican. This will go to Donald Trump. However, is it going to be kind of competitive? Yes, it's going to be more competitive than Texas, more than like Ohio. It's going to be pretty competitive, but still, it should be a fairly safe victory if you are the Republican nominee. Something that the Democrats can kind of hopefully count on is Nevada. If you're a Democrat, you can say, you know what, yeah, I'm trying to count on this. Hopefully we can count on this because they have had a very good run there. Yes, it did get pretty close in 2022, but still, Cortez Masters was able to win re-election. She did not run the best campaign, to be honest, but it was a victory for her people, for her party, and the party in there has kind of gotten stronger since then. These states, you can see how close. If you're a Republican, you really just want to get a couple of these. You want to win them back. So another one that the Democrats can hopefully count on, if you are a Democrat, you can hopefully count on Georgia. Why Georgia? Many people thought it was a fluke in 2020. They thought it was a fluke when Joe Biden won it in the presidential. But then it showed twice in the runoff elections, in the runoffs, that Ossoff and Warnock were both able to win. They're like, all right, you know what? That was just 2020. Get 2020 behind us. We're going to show them in 2022. But then in 2022, Warnock did it again, right? And this is showing that the Democrats, they're not dead down there, right? It continues to get more and more Democratic as time goes on. And if trends continue, it should be even more Democratic this go around, which is why it's going to be close. It's going to be a swing state. Money's going to be spent here. It's going to be a place that both candidates visit a lot. But especially with a Trump indictment likely on the way from Georgia, it's not looking great for Trump down there. It's looking like Biden has a fairly good shot down there. Something I mentioned that I wanted to talk about for a little bit was what has changed, right? This is going to be almost an identical matchup. What has changed? Joe Biden, he's much older, and health is becoming a much greater concern for him. Donald Trump has been impeached again, indicted twice, and caused an insurrection on the Capitol. Both issues are, believe it or not, equally weighting on the minds of both parties, both kind of bases. If you are a Democrat, you really want to be sure that Kamala Harris is up for the job because, not to be grim, but the likelihood of Joe Biden dying while in office is higher than most other presidents were during their time. And if you are a Republican, you want to be very sure that Trump can stay out of as many scandals as he can and try to stay out of jail, right? That's the bar for both of them, right? If you're a Democrat, you don't want your guy to die. And if you're a Republican, you don't want your guy to go to jail. Those are kind of some of the issues that are going to be really dominating it, right? It's going to be less about foreign policy. It's going to be less about the economy. It's going to be more about wedge issues like abortion, like January 6th, what happened on January 6th, because there's going to be a rematch, and then also what happens with kind of anti-gay legislation and pride in general, and some of these wedge issues, some of these more societal issues. That's going to be an important issue of this campaign. Now we're going to go some states that if you are a Republican, you feel fairly confident in. If you're a Republican, you feel fairly confident that you will be able to win North Carolina again. North Carolina, the demographics are looking pretty good. If you are a Democrat, they are probably going to make some inroads, but they are nowhere near where they need to be in order to flip it, right? This is kind of North Carolina's kind of taken the path that Georgia took, slowly getting more and more and more and more Democratic, but they are not at that tipping point. Yes, right. North Carolina and Texas, these are two states that are definitely shifting over to the Democratic side a little bit more, while Florida and Iowa and Ohio are going over to the Republican side a little bit more. Another place that if you're a Republican, you are going to be fairly certain and or hopeful that you can pick up, and that's going to be Arizona. Why Arizona? Well, you're feeling hopeful, right? He's not very popular down there. If you're Joe Biden, you're not very popular, and the Republican Party in Arizona is one of the most pro-Trump kind of Republican caucuses statewide, as all compared to kind of country. Arizona's really been kind of a strong advocate. They are very big Trump supporters in Arizona. So if it is Donald Trump who wins the nomination against Joe Biden, it's looking like, especially without Mark Kelly on the ballot, because Mark Kelly did do a fantastic job. He was very popular down there, and he did get Joe Biden some support, which is kind of backwards from how customarily it works. Usually some of the Senate candidates, some of the House candidates, some of the state candidates ride on the coattails of the president. In Arizona, it kind of seemed like Mark Kelly was doing a bunch of the heavy lifting for Joe Biden. But with Mark Kelly not running in this election, it is looking like the Republicans will be able to safely carry Arizona. So now it's down to 3 states. These 3 states, kind of the blue wall. These used to be very Democratic states. The Democrats used to be able to count on these reliably. However, they are not any longer. Gretchen Whitmer has done a fantastic job, if you are a Democrat, in Michigan. She has just gone above and beyond what was asked of her. All 3 of these have Democratic governors, and they have been trying to fight this anti-abortion legislation. These 3 states are key to winning. It gets really close here. It gets really close. That's why I think Wisconsin is going to go to the Republican candidate. And that means that Pennsylvania will decide who the next president of the United States is. But we're going to quickly talk about Michigan. We're going to talk about Wisconsin. So Michigan, it's gotten the reason for Michigan compared to Wisconsin is that in Michigan, the Democrats in power at the state level have done a much better job than in Wisconsin. It's that simple, right? If both candidates at the top of the ticket aren't as popular, it's going to be about what the parties can do. And just in general, the Democratic Party in Michigan has been more complete, more kind of successful in kind of doing stuff at the statewide level compared to what has been happening in Wisconsin. That does not mean that the Wisconsin Democrats have been doing a bad job by any means, but it means that the Republican Party in Wisconsin is a little bit stronger. Pennsylvania, this is where it all comes down to who the next president of the United States will be, and I think that it will go to Joe Biden and the Democrats at this point. However, it will be very, very close. It will be a very close election, and it will be decided by kind of this blue wall right here, right? These 3 states are the states that are likely going to decide it. Pennsylvania, just like Michigan, the Democrats within the state have done a fantastic job, and abortion is also a very big issue here. And for that reason, we're going to give it kind of the edge. They are a bit more ahead on the kind of the ideological, societal issue with gay rights. They are a bit more supportive of gay rights, so that wedge issue will not play as large of a role because of its kind of proximity to the more liberal bloc. If the more coastline, if you see right here, this is a very democratic, very liberal ideology. And for that reason, it's a fairly good chance that the Democrats and Joe Biden will be able to win in Pennsylvania. Yes, will health issues kind of play a role? Yes, Could it get messy? Yes. Will a lot of money be spent here? Yes. Could this prediction change? Absolutely. But where will the prediction change? The prediction will change Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. These 3 states, these are the states that will decide who the next president of the United States of America is, almost certainly. Yes, there are other swing states, but they are not as swingy as these 3 states. It is important to note that the things that have changed is Joe Biden has gotten older, Trump has gotten in more trouble, and the economy has gotten better. Those are some of the things to keep in mind, right? Joe Biden's biggest concern was the economy, but it has gotten better. It has gotten better. Joe Biden's age is becoming more concerned because he's having more of these gaps, more of these slip-ups, but you are able to see him do stuff like what he did at the State of the Union, where he's able to stand on his feet. If you were a Republican, your hope is being like, okay, well, Joe Biden is too old, and the voters can see that, and you are running someone who is, to be fair, 4 years younger, but acts like he's 15 years younger. It's clear Trump is definitely more lively, has more energy to him, even though they are pretty close to the same age. You will not be really able to tell that within Trump. So this is my prediction for 2024. It is definitely shifted. It has gotten more Republican from the last one, from the April one. And that's because the Republicans are making up ground and Joe Biden is kind of getting a bit more unpopular. Will this change? Absolutely. These are going to continue to change as the climate continues to grow and evolve. But for now, this is my prediction who will win in 2024. Thank everybody so much for listening. Be sure to check out the latest episode where I kind of talk about who were these Republican candidates for the 2024 nomination, for the nod from their party. Go to whydoicarepod.com to find that. It's a fantastic episode. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I've run through maybe 6 candidates and their pros, their cons, and whether or not they are a realistic kind of chance or hope for the party, for the nomination. whydoicarepod.com. Thanks everyone so much. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Be sure to share. All that fun stuff. You know how YouTube works. You know what it's like. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great rest of your day.